This is a cautionary tale of greed, deceit, and betrayal. It would all go down in New Orleans, Louisiana, the city that never sleeps. The year is 2022. A notorious street figure from the 90s who had been locked up in federal prison for more than 20 plus years on a life sentence walked free for reasons a judge would block from public view. Terrance Williams, the man known as Gangsta, was a career criminal who had been pushing heroin, pulling off jack moves, and committing murder. Was snagged while plotting another murder when the FBI wiretap would get him caught up in 1998. In court, Terrance Williams pleaded guilty to engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise and solicitation for murder. Terrance was caught plotting to kill a group of New York drug dealers in New Orleans to get paid for heroin they had shipped by mail. The feds would, however, intercept the package as they listened to Terrance hatch the murder plan. In an unforeseen turn of events, U.S. District Judge Ivan Lamel would resentence Terrance to 27.5 years per court records. Terrance was released on January 3rd of 2022 at the age of 47, according to records from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Though federal law directs judges to state in open court the reasons for the imposition of a particular sentence, judges often obscure a defendant's cooperation and its benefits by sealing records, hearings, and transcripts. Even the fact an inmate was reinstated is sometimes absent from the public docket, citing inmate safety. The federal judiciary began restricting public disclosure of judges' reasons for sentences in 2001. The Bureau of Prisons also barred inmates from holding their sentencing documents amid reports of assault over the documents. This, however, wouldn't matter because there are still ways to get the paperwork in prison. It's not unusual for the government to go to bat for cooperators in federal court. In the federal districts based in New Orleans and Baton Rouge, 1 in 6 defendants received a benefit for cooperation in 2020, about twice the national rate, per the U.S. Sentencing Commission. What does that mean? What it means is this: there were more dudes getting down in the NO and BR than any other city in the USA. Court records will show that Terrance began helping the government immediately after his arrest, although it wouldn't help him then. In 1999, prosecutors filed a 5K motion that noted Terrance's substantial assistance in securing guilty pleas from co-defendants. Terrance also provided information to state authorities regarding a number of murders, allegedly 40 to be exact, and urged others who had witnessed the murders to come forward. To make that clear for you, Terrance didn't commit 40 murders at all. He would, however, provide information on 40 homicides that he had knowledge of. Let's move on. Donald Dyer, aka Blabber, got backdoored by Robert Moody, who wore a recorder on Blabber as he got Blabber to run EPs about their case. Terrance would ultimately be implicated in 2 murders after his guilty pleas, triggering prosecutors to decline recommending a sentence reduction. Judge Lamel would find that the murders, both which had taken place in 1997, were relevant conduct. B57. Dead were Ishmael Fernandez, a 26-year-old Avondale shipyard worker in the 2800 block of Willow Street, and 19-year-old Colin Keynes, who was shot dead on LaSalle Street. Terrance would later state that he had witnessed both killings in letters to the judge in the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office, though he would allegedly pin the gunfire on someone else. Terrance also wrote that prosecutors agreed to support a sentence reduction for a correctional officer that he had helped be arrested. These are the detailed events of what took place before, during, and after the arrest of Terrance Williams, aka Gangsta. Born in 1974, Terrance Williams, as a young kid, lived in the 17th Ward neighborhood of New Orleans, Gertown to be exact, later moving to Phillip Street in the UPT. Terrance's younger years wouldn't just revolve around pulling off mischievous acts. According to Terrance, he was once part of the swim team at Gertown Recreational Center, aka the Gertown Pool, as well as playing park ball for Nord at Taylor Park. New Orleans, the city where life insurance policies are placed on kids at the age of 11, was and still is one of the most murderous cities in America. It wouldn't be long before Terrance Williams would start hanging in and around the NOLA with one of his little homegirls. It was through her that he would meet Mosquito, who he would at first not like. Eventually, the two would become thick as thieves, pulling off all kinds of shit together. Mind you, these dudes were barely in their teens. In would step Sterling Lofton, aka Hot Boy Sterling, who was a little older and had already built a reputation in the streets. Having heard rumors of the acts that Terrance and John had pulled off, Sterling would ask them who they were, as he had heard the two were cutting up in the hood. As fate would have it, the three would all link up. The rest would be history. Eventually, Terrance's criminal activity would catch up with him, landing Terrance in juvenile jail, where he would link up with Alvin Nelson, aka Killer Stone, who ultimately ended up tagging Terrance with the nickname Lil Gangsta. Having grown tired of being confined and wanting to hit the streets, Terrance would break out of juvenile jail. By this time, Terrance's mom had moved to the Magnolia Project. Terrance will finally have a Magnolia address. After being encouraged by Stone, it wouldn't be long before Terrance will be free after getting picked back up. The first real gangster out the NOLA to embrace Terrance and look out for him was Jerkerman, aka Jerk, an official dude out the NOLA.
Fuck y'all niggas, got choppers and bullets that chop, cut down niggas. Like I'm lumberjack, watch you fall, yeah, timber. Murder ain't hard for me, it's too easy, simple.
As time would pass, Terrance would start to learn the dope game from Killer Stone.
Man, they got 50s all next to the 100s, bro. Somebody trying to mess up my cop, man. Look at this here, man. Recount. It's clothes like make 25 stacks.
It was actually Killer Stone who taught Terrance how to operate a triple beam. However, as Terrance's street cred would begin to rise and his name begin to ring in the streets, he would soon begin to feel himself, dropping the Lil from the name and running with Gangsta. Young Terrance had been groomed by older gangsters that came before him, like Blackie Moe and Eric Maurice, who Terrance had allegedly pulled off his first murder for. It was cutthroat city for Terrance, as he would even backdoor his own people, Killer Stone, and hit him for some bricks. Nothing beats the double cross but the triple cross. It wouldn't be long before Stone would get his get back, adding flames to Terrance's new Infiniti QX4 SUV. In typical Terrance Williams fashion, he would bounce back and cop the 400 Benz sedan.
B57 Beats.
If you believe that Terrance was pulling off everything that he was doing in the streets without any backlash, you will be absolutely wrong. Terrance too would fall victim to attempts on his life, being stabbed in the chest and shot on different occasions. It's a dirty world, but it still spins. And with that being said, both Sterling and Mosquito would lose their lives to the streets, leaving Terrance to fend for himself alongside Hot and Blabber. Contrary to what has been falsely stated on social media, as of recent, the Phillip Street neighborhood and the Olive Street neighborhood of New Orleans have never been designated for the upper middle class blacks of the city. Both neighborhoods have always been occupied by the working class blue-collar black population. Before Hurricane Katrina and the most recent gentrification, these were two areas of the city that actually had black homeowners mixed in with those of whom lease their dwellings. Let's move on.
New Orleans ranked 5th in the country's 20 most gentrified cities. For many, the cost of living has surpassed the rate of pay, and the disparities and disadvantages were made even worse after Hurricane Katrina. Tonight, we discuss how progress came at the expense of some lifelong New Orleanians. Here's part 1 of episode 5 of Follow the Line. Hurricane Katrina opened New Orleans up to become one of the most intensely gentrified cities in America.
It was a beautiful neighborhood, but since the storm, all the ones that was renting is not here anymore.
But even before the storm hit, New Orleans was facing an affordable housing crisis.
Right before Hurricane Katrina, we had something like 100,000 renters, African-American renters.
Residents who lived in low-wage households then spent most of their money on housing. With the storm impacting a large portion of the city's most vulnerable communities, it made finding affordable housing in the aftermath a challenge.
We somehow, though, managed to create a worse housing system than we had pre-Katrina.
How so?
More vulnerability, more housing insecurity,
and more opportunity to further segregate the city.
The gentrification is on and popping.
Before Katrina, you could get a house around here for $200,000, and that was expensive. But now everything is $4 and up.
Gentrification process is already pricing this out.
If we don't get it, take it.
I just want to see New Orleans stay New Orleans.
Gentrification has swept across America. From Brooklyn, New York to Oakland, California, communities that were historically black have made a dramatic shift in demographics across the board. New Orleans is no different, and Katrina sped up that process.
In order to run this up properly, we must first debunk the claims of the oil and gas industry leaving Louisiana in the late 70s and early 80s for being the sole reason for the plight of the black community in the city of New Orleans. The truth of the matter is that the oil and gas market did not leave Louisiana in the late 70s and early 80s. In fact, the oil and gas market was booming during this time frame.
One main cog in the wheel of progress has been the oil and gas industry. As a matter of fact, one entire section of the city is dedicated to just that industry. It's called the Oil Center.
Within and nearby are some 750 oil-related service companies. The oil industry has just completed a banner year in South Louisiana. 1981 should be even better.
The future for energy at any level I think is just fantastic.
However, when numbers did take a shift, if you pull the actual factual data, we'll find that only 17% of the black community were actually impacted by the oil and gas industry. The other 83% of the working class black community were blue collar professionals, all worked in the medical, hospitality, and retail industries. That being said, stop the fucking cap. The real reason for the poverty-stricken environments was the systemic racism, which still exists today. Let's get back to the app. The infamous war between the Calio Project and the Magnolia Project will be one for the record books, as this war would spawn several casualties and spill over from generation to generation. In fact, it was during the spoils of this war that John Bryant, aka Rookie, would lose his life. However, Terrance's ultimate demise would not come at the hands of the Calio Magnolia War. Shockingly, Terrance's downfall would be at the behest of his own doing. In 1998, eager to come up and hit a lick, Terrance would plot and scheme to jack and kill the Connect. This plan would, however, turn out bad, as Terrance Williams would be slammed by the feds before he could go with his move. The FBI would ultimately end up bum-rushing Terrance's mother's apartment in the Magnolia Project. When it all came crumbling down, Terrance would have a laundry list of co-defendants on his case. Terrance Gangsta Williams' reign of terror had finally come to an end.